Hey friends, welcome in one more session with Saurabh Kulkarni. He is an architect based in London, UK, working for one of the leading banks in UK. Earlier, he had already taken one session on DevOps for Scrum Master. So, if you have not seen that session, do that please. The video link is in the description. And before we start our session, friends, on TDD and BDD, one small request. We are doing a lot of hard work to bring all these sessions from the industry personals, experts. So please motivate us by hitting like button. Your one like is a big motivation for us. So friends, don't forget to do that. And also you can suggest more topic of your choice. We really love to see your feedback. So you can put comments also. So thanks one more time, Saurabh, for giving your time and welcome.
Sure. Thanks, Sunan, for giving me a second time opportunity to share my knowledge that I have gained from my previous experience with the Scrum Masters community. I feel good uh, sharing my experience through your channel. It gives me a satisfaction. Thanks a lot for that. So uh, let's start with this session. This is TDD and BDD, which is the and bit of about my background is that I got 12 plus years of experience into different. I played different role in the software industry so far, and my major experience goes into the financial services, which is uh, mostly based out of UK. Um, and I'm currently doing as an architect solution designing work. So so this topic is very interesting, which is TDD and BDD for agile projects. We are going to see this from um, the technical knowledge perspective. What is this, and what role that these skills are playing at the moment in the project? Uh, so while I was thinking about what to present here, I have put together different topics. These different topics are uh, outlined so that you will know why TDD is important, what is the different TDDs and BDDs type of approaches available in the industry or available to use by the industry. And we will see definitions of the TDD, then we will see the birth of behavioral driven development briefly, that how it is uh, come to an existence, what is the need of that. Then we will see uh, a quick difference between the both, though they both share the same goal, and you will know this later in the session. Uh, After that, we will see a case study, which will what we will do. We will do a simple project and implement the TDD, and also a case study on the BDD with a simple example. So let's start with the why it is important. So if you think of TDDs and BDDs, that from the Scrum Master's perspective, you must have heard this all the time in your daily Scrum calls, and this is this is important because it will ensure the code quality, the quality of your product that your organization or your team is going to deliver. From that point of view, it is important. If you see the every user story is being written today, they are being written uh, uh, in a template which is which is suitable for the BDDs. And also one of the one of the requirement of the user stories definition of done is completing the uh, test writing the test automations for the story uh, that particular story. So definition of done is important. Who is looking for this is mostly the product owners and the BAs that uh, and I will we will come to that later stage in the session, that how the business drives the BDD, and and how TDD is different than the BDD. So it will give you the code coverage in terms how your code is covered by these tests, and you are making sure that your code is not failing, it is passing, and it is all covered. So that code coverage is also important. You will heard this of. Uh, Also, this is TDD and BDDs are important because it is one of the skill that is required or being asked by the recruiters, different recruiters or the market leaders today, whether it is a technology companies or any software requirements that drives with the TDDs and BDDs. So you whenever you will see any job description which is for a developer's role or for the quality engineer's role, software engineer role, it is being asked. Uh, the TDDs and BDD skills are being asked there. So let's see the different approaches. What are the different approaches currently? So let's understand from the basics. Okay, so what like you guys are the SMEs of Scrum. You all are Scrum masters. You are the subject matter experts of the Scrum. So you understand Agile very well. Now Agile is a methodology, it is not any as such as a technology, but it is a methodology that we follow. It tells you what to do and what not to do. Very similar to Agile. This is an approach, a kind of a methodology you will see, and this work in hand with the Agile. So for Agile, this is one of the requirement of the Agile, that TDDs and BDDs. So these are approaches that you will use, but these approaches, there are different approaches, like in case of Agile as well. If you, as you know, there are different ways of doing the projects. You can do via Agile, you can do via Lean, you can do via waterfall model. Uh, So these are the different methodologies one can use for delivering the projects. Similarly, for achieving a code quality, you will be able to use different approaches, and the two predominantly approaches that are widely being used in the market are TDDs and BDDs. Okay, so 9 out of 10 is using TDDs and BDDs. So what are all the approaches? Let's see one by one. It is first is test driven development, that is we are talking about. Second is behavioral driven development. Third is functional driven development, and fourth is design driven development. So these all four approaches are there to achieve the quality of your code or product. Now they differ from each other fundamentally, and these four are having their own implementation mechanism. So that's why they are four different and having their own existence. Now it is the choice of a particular team that which approach they want to use. Mostly all the projects they use TDDs and BDDs because TDDs has come into the market first. So they are the old. Now TDDs are very low level, so they are being used by the developers all the time. Whenever they start writing the code, they use the TDDs, and we will see that later in the session. But understand that this is old, so TDD is there from a long time. Then after the BDDs has evolved and BDDs has come to help other stakeholders within the team, and we will see that how that is helping other stakeholders within the team. But it is observed that in the market, in the industry, whether it is a financial services, whether it is a manufacturing industries, the software being developed are following both the approaches. Now following the TDD approach is very cost effective. You don't need an extra cost. It's the same developer that is writing the code, it's supposed to write the TDD. So TDDs comes as a package with the developer itself. So developers are habitual and writing these. It is a long term practice that they are following. So the TDDs, you don't need anything extra. BDDs are being predominantly used with a tool called Cucumber, and we will see that later on. That is also open source. But the behavioral driven development need has come later in the industry, which is also acquired by the industry, and the two approaches currently the industry is using, and both approaches are coexisted on most of the projects. So it is debatable whether you should use one of those, but this is observed and this is been followed by the most of the industries, most of the companies, that they are following both the approaches together. Now one can debate why we need to follow the two approaches, because one, like, we don't do agile and lean together, but BDD and TDD you can do together. Both are having a goal to increase the code quality, so it is a double shield for your code and the quality. So I think that's why and as I said, there is no cost effectiveness, there's no cost from the TDD's perspective or a BDD's perspective. So the product or a business, they are not hesitant towards they seems to be not hesitant to use both. So they like to use both, so they don't bother if the projects are using both, and projects are seems to using both all the time. uh, let's go on to the next topic, which is, this is the definition of the TDD. Like I said, this is very much with the very much habitual activity of a developer. It's the routine of the developer that I will say is the write the DDD. It gives the guidelines on how the development work. At such writing the test cases first to fail, and then write the code and then pass it. So there is a now TDD is an approach. So this approach, what it tells, okay, it tells you, okay, see the requirements, write the test cases according to your requirements, and your requirement should fail first. So it is it is it is the what approach says, follow the steps. The step one, see the requirements. Step two, write the test for that requirements. Make sure that the tests are failing, which, so this you will see in the diagram, the red one writing a test which is failing. Then write the code so that the test pass. Change the code, which is nothing but the refactor in the blue. When you refactor that, either your test fail or pass. It's supposed you write a code until the test should pass. So when you write the code and makes your test pass, when you follow these three steps, you are doing TDD. The this is the ideal way of following. Now from the scrum master's perspective, you would have seen in the daily scrum calls that the update generally comes from the developer, is that they say, or they update that we are working on the TDDs. So the TDDs are in progress, we are writing the test cases. So when they say we are writing the test cases, they are covering the TDD. And obviously TDD is being covered that way, but TDD is um, also important from the code coverage perspective. So most of the companies or the projects, they seems to have set a limit for their code coverage. So most of the companies would target a code coverage of 95%, 90%, which means whatever implementation they are doing or new requirements they are writing, they are making sure that at least 95% of the code is written, test cases are written for that. And that code coverage is being derived from the TDDs. Okay, so that is the test driven development. It is the word you will see or heard almost every day, and there are complaints come within the Scrum, which are the which are some of the hurdles, I would say, that comes, that the coverage is less, the build is failing, and the coverage is so I have my code, I have written the test cases for my code, but there is some other code which doesn't have the test cases, and I need more time because somebody else has added the code without the test coverage. So these things you will see happening around, because such a problems come within the team because uh, someone is not following TDD properly and someone is following the TDD properly. So because this is the constraint that the 90% of the coverage should be there, most of the DevOps engineers set this as a rule into their delivery pipeline, which is DevOps. And that's why being the developers starts complaining in the scrum that their build is not passing because the coverage is less. And when they say I have written my coverages as per my definition of done, but somebody else has done, I don't know, but and I don't know why the build has passed before, or that has just just made some tricky things because the code has just gone in without writing the test cases. So these are some of the complaints or problems that the engineer seems to battling around within the scrums, and you will see that a lot of time. So from the scrum master perspective, I'm emphasizing on this word called test. I'm writing the tests, that nothing but the TDDs. It is important from the scrum master's perspective that I think that the engineers are following the TDD properly. If somebody is not following that, you will see a lot of conflicts happening within the scrum, because somebody is if somebody is following the TDD's writing and somebody is not, though there are checks, it should in real world it shouldn't happen. Unless your coverage is 95%, you are not allowed to go in. But somehow it happens. You can, it's the through the DevOps engineers and through the DevOps scripts that put this rule. You can turn off the rules and do the things. That is also possible, but that's highly not recommended to do unless there are exceptions to do this. But if somebody is doing like this, you are adding the code without test coverages, so you are losing the quality here. So that's the test driven development. So when we will now we will see, okay, so test driven development is there. We are writing the test through an approach which is provided by the TDD. We are following that practice. We are securing our code and we are happy. Now, why we need BDD then? What is the use of BDD then? Uh, it's it's the question. Why is the BDD? So we'll have to see the birth of BDD then. The birth of BDD has come because this TDD is not uh, it's only for the developers. I would say it's only for the developers because it is written at the low level by the developer to test whatever the code that they are writing to achieve some functionality. It is tested by the developer on their local machines. They have been written by them. So it's only being monopolied by the developers. Now, but developer is doing this looking at the requirements. But if you have to discuss this along with the other stakeholders of the team, suppose it is a business or a business analyst or a product owner, you don't have it's very difficult, it's highly difficult to discuss this because it's a very low level, it's at the programming level. You have written the test and you are trying to cover that. Now the business side of the projects always feel that they are not onboarded with the test strategies that being followed. So to help onboard them, so to help onboard the different uh, members of the team onto this activity, the BDD has taken a birth. So what is BDD? It's a behavioral driven development. What do you mean by behavior? So the behavior is being defined by the business. Okay. Now, uh, if I have to give you an example, suppose of an behavior, I am coming. I suppose there is a requirement that uh, it's a business requirement that a person should be able to drive the person when the person should come to visit a family living in a house. He should be able to press the bell on the door, and that bell should ring and one of the family members should be able to check who is outside and open the door. Suppose it's not a software requirement, but let's see, this is a requirement and this is a business requirement. Suppose it's a hypothetical, a virtual example that I'm giving. So what is involved in this? There is a behavior involved in this. What is the behavior? There is a user or there is a customer who is walking or driving to an house where he want to go and visit a family. So when they go and drive onto the door, they come onto the door, they should see a bell onto the door. They should press that. When they press the bell, a ring should happen. That's the second requirement. When the ring happens, somebody from the family member needs to receive that bell and walk and see through the camera who is there outside. So there is a third requirement that the inside family member should able to see who is outside. Fifth business requirement here is that they should be able to open the door and the visitor should able to come inside the house and meet the family members. So meeting is the fifth requirement. So you see this is all depends on the behavior. So behavior of a user is to walk or to drive. The behavior is to press the bell. The behavior of bell is to ring. The behavior of the family member is to heard the bell. The behavior of the family member is to verify who is outside. And the behavior here as the family member or the user is to open the door and give them an access. So this is the business requirement. So it is all on the behavior. So what happens here in the behavioral development? From the business side, the product owners, the business analyst, they give this requirement as in BDD, as in behavioral development. So what they give as a requirement is the template that they use to tell you that what is the user behavior. Now the BAs should, and this is plain English, so the BAs are comfortable. So BAs are now understanding, now able to understand what's the tests are being written. So they are written for the requirement given by the BA. So BA is giving this requirement that the user should come and press the bell. So the BA is giving you a requirement through through this. A user should press the bell. This is a clear English requirement. When this requirements read by the developer, suppose the developer knows that yeah, there is a requirement this, so he copies that requirement as one of the feature, and then he writes the test for that which will run. So you have covered the scenario, one scenario. Now the second scenario also being given inputted by the BAs. Now you see this as the business side and the technical side of the people are onboarded with this, and they are being able to relate what they are saying to each other. So this is more convenient than the TDD. So why we are using the TDD and BDDs both? So that's like I said in the beginning, because BDD is more of a business side and the more stakeholders are able to do this and happy about this. So why we use the TDD then? That's debatable, but TDDs is something that comes inbuilt with the developers, that their routine that they follow. So it's a two approaches that the most of the projects are keep following this all the time. So that's the birth you will see. So you see the diagram where when you see this diagram carefully, you will see the given set of preconditions. Like I given an example. What is the preconditions in the example that I given as an analogy? That you need a user, a customer, to walk or drive. Okay, that's one requirement precondition. Second precondition is you need a house where a family is living. Third requirement, you need a bell on the door which should be working. And these are the three preconditions for this particular scenario that I have just given you an analogy. So these three preconditions when given to the BDD, and the business analyst could say when what event occur, that is the scenario they are explaining to you. And then if when this happens, then what needs to happen. So when and then, So what is then is the result, and that result is also being given to you by the BA. So now you need to make sure that when this event occur, then this needs to be outputted or being resulted. So when this happens, so in the analogy, if you see, when you press the bell, what happens? The family members open the door, and the user should get access to the house. So when rings the bell, somebody in the family should open the door. So when press the bell, then from the family members they should open the door. So when and then is working here to make the whole scenario. So that's the birth of the BDD, I would say. So if you have to see the BDD by definition, it's a theory definition. So it's in the software engineering, the behavior driven development is an agile software development process. Like we are emphasizing on the word approaches, you will say this. You can say this as one of the processes or approaches, but be in your mind that this is not the technology or any programming language like Java or C++. It's again a methodology that one should follow, like an agile. So it's a development process that encourages a collaboration among the developers, quality engineers, assurance, and the customers representatives. So the customer representatives here is the business analyst and typical setup of the software development projects. So okay, now we have seen that TDD, BDD both are required. Now we will see what's the difference between TDDs and BDDs. Be in your please keep in your mind that the TDDs and the BDDs, okay, they are both having the same goal. What is the goal? Achieving the code quality. So the quality of the code is needs to be achieved here, and that's the goal that the both are having. If you see the stakeholders, for TDDs only one stakeholder is there, which is developer. For BDD, there are multiple stakeholders are there, which are developers, BAs, and QAs. If you see the focus of the TDD process, it is more on unit testing. What does you mean by the unit testing? Is that whatever the code we are writing, like I explained in the TDD's definition, you need whatever code we are writing, we need to make sure we need to first write the test, make it fail, write the code, make it pass. So it's we are talking about the units here, so it is a unit testing. What is BDD? It is more on the requirement that the BAs are giving us, like when and then. When the when event occurs, what needs to be resulted then. So that's more of a requirement. So that's the BDD. If you see the tooling, the J unit is used. Cucumber is used for the TDD. If the BDD, you will say there are a number of tools are available in the market that facilitate the BDD framework, or that will help us to achieve the BDD. They are Cucumber, predominantly used in the market. There are others too, but the more common here is JUnit and the Cucumber, and 99% of the places the Cucumber, JUnit and the Cucumber are being used. So we will see when we'll see the demo now, we will see that with the JUnit and the Cucumber only. So the what value they are adding. So like I said, the test TDD is very low level. So the developers are happy and familiar with it, and they are having that hold on that. But BDD is also adding a value, which is from the business perspective, they are adding a value because they are onboarding the BAs as well into this process. So the BDD also make uh, value addition here, and that is addition to what the TDD offers. So I would say BDD is a next step of the TDD. So when we go to the next slide, now we'll see some hands-on experience. Okay, so how the TDDs and BDDs are achieved. So we'll see the TDD simple case study. So before we go to the demo, I would like to highlight few things here, which are prerequisites. Now, for you as a because I hope this video is being watched mostly by the Scrum Masters. Because of that, clarifying this at the beginning of the demo, that this involves very much this demo has very much knowledge of a low level thing that generally a developer and the quality engineers are doing on the ground. But I'm trying to give you a simple example here, so that you will know what is, when the developer or tester says that they are doing this, so you will know a flavor that what they are doing basically on the ground, and you will be able to relate that. If you have to do this hands-on experience on your own, which is good if you do, then then there are some prerequisites that you need to have, and I just wanted to clarify that here. One of the prerequisite is to install and set up your Java. From where a Java to be installed, which is I'm not covering in this session. You need to follow this link given in this the in the given here. We'll give that into the comments on the description of the video. Also, you will need a tool, a programming tool to write the program so that you can achieve TDD and BDD. You can use any of the any of the tools that you want to use, but I'm using in this video idea IntelliJ. You can use other tools as well, like Eclipse, Visual Studio, and any of those. Um, Also make sure that TDDs and BDDs you can write for any programming languages. So these are for all the programming languages. We are using here Java for the demonstration, but understand similar thing is happening with the React, happening with the Angular, happening with the C++, happening it with the Python, happening with the Ruby, and whatever the skill that your project is being used at the moment. So the technical stack is whatever in your project, but what steps we are doing to achieve BDD and TDD, they are following the same regardless of the programming language. Some of the sentences and some of the terms that being used by these frameworks are slightly different when it comes to the different programming languages, but the core framework remains same. So you understand for one language, you will be able to do it for the other language. But the prerequisite, you should know that language first, because you are writing with that language. So that is the crisp of this. Now let's go for the first example, which is test driven development case study. For this, I have thought of what simple thing we just need to put in front of you, because in my experience throughout the development experience that I had, I worked on the projects which are complex and involves a lot of integrations to a different systems. In those cases, the TDD becomes little more lengthier and complex, but the BDDs is also becomes more complicated in terms of implementing that. But it has very sophisticated framework which is provided by the Cucumber. So remember this tool Cucumber that facilitates you to write the BDDs. Remember the tool called JUnit, which facilitates you to write the TDDs. So TDDs and the BDDs are the frameworks which helps and take off a lot of burden that generally a developer should taken care of, but the frameworks are so strong that they are taking care of most of the most of the burden here by them. So it's like making your life easy when you are implementing TDD and BDD. So yes, but then like I said, I'm giving here a very simple example. We'll go through that and we'll see how to implement that. It is to give you a flavor what is happening on the ground. Okay, so you will be able to relate what is happening. So let's see. Let's go to the first example for the TDD. Uh, let's say we want to build. Uh, let's say we want to build a calculator. So there is a requirement here to build a calculator, and the calculator has a different functionalities, like what it should do. You know, a calculator should add two numbers. A calculator should multiply two numbers. A calculator should divide two numbers. Yeah, the calculator should add a series of numbers. A calculator should add do subtraction, multiplication, and dividing the numbers. So this is a typical calculation functionality, and if there is a requirement in a typical agile project, is to develop a software that calculates things. So that's the requirement. Now this requirement has come in. Uh, we are following the TDD approach here. Remember, we are doing the TDD for this functionality. Let's start writing the code. Let's do hands-on right now. Uh, I'm opening my on my machine. I'm opening the tool that I have installed, which you can also install by following the step 2 on this slide. So this is the development tool that I'm using, which is IntelliJ IDEA. So you can download the ultimate version of that, which is the version I have downloaded is 2020.2. This is not the licensed version, so it will restart after 20 minutes. And I apologize for in case it gets restarted. It's now restarting now. Yes. Let's start writing the functionality, which is to write the addition to do, which will do the addition. Suppose a simple calculation functionality. So I'm writing quickly a small program here which will do the calculation. So the calculator, we can call it a service, calculator service. We're creating a service called calculator service, and I'm creating quickly a method here, which is the functionality that we are trying to achieve, which will suppose add two numbers. So we are just seeing quickly a quick. So the number one, and this method is expecting two numbers, numbers two. So let's say integer sum is number one plus number two. So this is, we are just trying to return the addition of the two. So that's the simple functionality that we are trying to do here. Similarly, what we will do is, so let's say this is the functionality that the calculator service developer is supposed to write. Now, to follow the test-driven approach, what should have done here is write. So the first feature of the calculator is it should be able to add the two numbers. Now I'm going to implement here. I'm going to write the test here based on this requirement, which is new. Okay, let's say calculator service. Now this is the test. So I will rename. We should name this as test. And remember, this is on your left plane. What we are saying is the development structure, and it is very sophisticated. It has all the programming codes written on the upper side of this, which is src main, and the Java. All the code that you are writing is here, and all the tests you are writing under the test folder. It is organized in that way. So like I said, how to achieve TDD is you should write the test first, it should fail, and then write the code and the test should pass. So generally developer is supposed to come into the test folder, write the test class first. So calculator service test is being written here. So this is the test class. Because this is the test class, uh, as it is a test class, it should be able to. So we need to write the test class here, which is the first feature or requirement is to test the sum addition of the two. So test addition of two numbers. Okay, and so how we are going to test, let's say there is a number 1 which is suppose 10, and let's say there is a integer number 2 which is 20, and obviously because we need to use the because we need to write the service so that that can be able to do this. Okay, so what we will do here is that we should be able to add two numbers, and number 1 and the number 2. So we are just passing 10 and 20 here. It should return 10 plus 10. Let's do number 1 is 10 and number 2 is 10. So it should return you 10 plus 10, 20. It should return you 20. So this is okay. So asset should equal to big integer of okay. So if I have to run this test now, this is the quick test we have written to test the addition of two numbers using the TDD approach. Because we have see that these are the tools that we are using here, the test. Okay, So this is the annotation that we need to use on the test, which is @test. The so let me take you one step back, okay, before we let me take you just one step back, which is you must be wondering, I have come to this project directly and I've started writing the code, uh, and I have not given idea here on the prerequisites. So let me just give that. As I explained earlier, that you need to install Java should you should be able to do that. You should be able to install the idea tool, that is this IntelliJ basically. Now you need to create the Maven project. So what is Maven? Maven is one of the build tool that you need to use, which has this pom.xml file, and which will be able to add different types of dependencies. Because what tool we are using for the test driven development approach, TDD, we are using JUnit. Now how my project knows that the TDD I'm having the TDD, uh, because the framework is JUnit, and your project, assume that your project is, you're building it from the scratch, it doesn't have JUnit. How you will tell your project that, look, there is a framework called JUnit, you need to consume that first and make me that framework available so that I can able to test using the TDD. So to tell the project, there is a pom.xml file, and where I need to mention the dependency of the JUnit. How do I know the dependency of that JUnit? That dependency is nothing but there's a version number that we need to configure here in the configuration file. Consider this as a configuration file. In this configuration file, we will tell our project that, okay, I want to use JUnit of this version, and this is this. So see here, I have already added that, and that's why I'm able to use the JUnit in my project, which is this dependency. How I have copied this, you can use the Google for that. If you go to the Google and if you see, just search the JUnit dependency, and you can write the POM. So when you do this, you will see the maven repository.com. Either you can go to this, or you can go to the JUnit official open source page that they are operating. One of those you can go, and if you go to the one of this, you will see the JUnit. So the 4.8.1 I have download, and you will see the dependency here. So you can simply copy this, right click, copy, come to your project, go to the pom.xml, and just paste here. So I have already pasted. I have pasted 4.12. On the Google, what we have seen is 4.8.1. So any of the versions you can use. And what are the different versions that are available? If you want to see that, you can go to the JUnit here, one tab back, and these are the different versions that are available. 4.13.x, 4.12. It's your choice. One of these you can use. I tend to use the latest one. Generally, you should also tend to use the latest one because they are latest and the stable. So okay, so that's the JUnit. And if and that's how the J, it's a, I have added, it's double here, it's not required. Okay, so that's how I told my project that, let's see, this is the JUnit. So the JUnit framework to implement the test driven development approach is now with me. I'm equipped with that as a developer. In an agile scrum, in a 14-day sprint, suppose I have got a action of a user story. A user story is telling me what? User story is telling me to build a calculator which should be able to add two numbers, and I want to achieve that. And one of the definition of done is the TDD. So I should, as a developer, I should know what is TDD. So TDD is the approach, is the methodology that I want to use. How I can use the TDD? There are a number of tools available. My project, suppose, chooses JUnit to implement the TDD, then I am bound to use the JUnit because it's available. And if it is a running project, there should be dependency already added into the POM. If it is literally from the scratch, you are building it from the first time, you need to copy this from the internet, and I have told you how to do that. So okay, so the dependencies are there. The JUnit framework is available to use. Now let's go to the Then what TDD approach tells us? TDD approach tells us, understand the requirement, go and write the test, it should fail. Go and write the code, test should pass. If you follow the three steps, you at the end of the third step, you are having the code to do the addition. That is your story. That is your scenario that you want to achieve. And you are also having the test, which is testing this. Because you have written the test, you failed it, you have written the code, and you test this, it should pass. Now you have test and you have code. Now this test is covering this code. So the coverage is 100% at this point of time. Okay. And organizations are requiring to from the developers or from the agile teams that they should at least follow 95%, 93%. It depends case to case. Because why this is not 100%? Because it is number of reasons. Some of the code that being written, there are no test cases. There is no, there is it's difficult to write the test case, or the test case are not possible to write for that piece of code. So few things are exceptional, so that's why they're trying and maintain 93, 95%, and the 5% is given as an exception. So the somebody's code is 100% covered, which means it is 100% quality is there. 95% means 95% quality is there. But mostly with the financial services projects or banking projects or larger projects, they tend to have 90, 95% because they always have an exception where they are not able to write the test cases. Scenarios where your code is printing document. So some of there are ways to test the printing document functionality, but maybe that's something that requires a different uh, brainstorming or a different set of efforts to achieve this. So they give exception to this functionality, and let's test this manually rather than testing it through the scripts. So okay, so that's how it is 90% and 95%. Now I'm having an user story in front of me. I want to write the test case for that. So I have gone into the code base now. I have written the test here. So assume that I have not written, I have not uh, written the code to pass this. So I have just written here empty something. So okay, so I'm just returning 0 because I have not written the code. Now what my TDD says, go and write the test case. Okay, I have gone and I have written the test. So what test I have written? Calculator self-service test. First thing I did is the return the test. First scenario that I written here is test addition of two numbers. I have taken sample two numbers for the testing, 10 and 10. I'm expecting the result should be 20. So the sum should be 20. So I'm just verifying here that the sum returned from this service, when I give 10, 10 numbers, the sum should return to me is 20. And I'm just comparing that. If it is 20, that means the service is working correctly. This test case should pass and work. You tell me whether this test case is pass or not. It will not pass because I have not written the code. If I go to the code here, which is being managed here, see, I'm what I'm doing here is I'm accepting the two numbers, and I'm doing nothing. I have not written a logic of adding the two numbers. It's empty. I'm following the test driven approach, which says write the test case, make it fail. I'm going to run this and it's supposed to fail. So I'm just running this. On this terminal, you will see whether the tests are passing or not. So shortly the tests are running, so it making the build ready and then start the test. Uh, yeah, so it's happening right now. Okay, it's done and it's failed. So Yeah, it has failed because I have had a different code for the BDD demo that is failing now. And I'm just have commented that, and I'm just running the test again. It should fail. The test should fail now. Perfect. See, the test is failed. Why it is failed? Because it has written nothing and the test is failing. And now the test is failing, so we need to see why it is failing, because it's not adding the two numbers. See, I have written the test case from the requirement. Test case is failed. I have checked why it is failed, because the requirement is to add two numbers and I have not added the two numbers. Let me just quickly go and add the two numbers. So number one plus number two. So these are called annotations that I'm using here at the rate test. That will tell this idea tool that these are the tests and not the actual code. This is just to verify that. And when I will just now I'm going to run the test because I have written the code. When I run the test, it should have written me 20 now and it should have passed. Perfect. You will see here that the tests are passed. So this is all green, which means test passed. One test is passed. Similarly, this is one of the requirement. It's very simple that the two numbers addition. We have written a test, we make it fail, we go on, we write the code for that. Again, we test the case, it passed. What I have done, I have read my user story. Definition of done is the TDD. So I know I need to implement the TDD. What is required for the TDD is the JUnit. I have injected JUnit through the dependency, and how to copy that JUnit version I have explained you. A developer need to inject that, because if it is a running project, it's a long-term project. Already things are going on there. It's an old repository, old development project. It's already there. You don't have to do anything. But then it's a new from the scratch you're building. You need to first time make the JUnit version, induce that into your project so that it can use that. So that's one thing. TDD approach followed and the tester pass. Now, whatever the user story tells me in terms of the requirement, I have to make sure that I'm passing all those scenarios here and there. Suppose my user story tells me it should add two numbers, it should multiply two numbers, it should divide two numbers, it should subtract two numbers. So what I need to do, I need to write the similar test cases. Like I write addition test case first, make it fail, write the code, make it pass. Addition is done. One thing is done. Second requirement of the user story, it should multiply the two numbers. I should similar way, like I did, should similar way write the multiply test first, how it will be multiply. Quickly, I will copy this, slight changes into that. Test multiply, and okay, to multiply also it should accept two numbers. To multiply, okay, so to multiply also it will be suppose 10 and 10, and it should have, we should just create an empty method here for the multiplication. So it will say multiply two numbers. Perfect. This is multiplication of the two numbers, So instead of addition, it will be multiplication. But this is the actual code, and which I don't want to do right now, because I want to follow strictly the agile methodology. I want to strictly follow the TDD approach into this. So I will say it's a 0. So yeah. So similarly, and I will say simply do multiplication after that. So run this test multiply. I will call the multiply number. Now whatever it return, it should return 100, because you are multiplying 10 with 10. If I do, because I have not written the code, it should fail. So yeah, as per the logic, it should pass first test, but it should fail the second test. We are following the test driven approach. It should need to fail first, write the code, make it pass. We did that with the first test. It is pass. It should pass. See, the first test is passed, but test with multiply is failed. Why it is failed? It is expecting 100. Actually, it's 100, but it is not doing anything. It's a 0. Now it's my responsibility. I will go and write the main code so that the test is passed. I'll go into the code where it is. It is calculator service here. I will simply multiply the two numbers, number 1 with number 2. I will simply save this, go to the test case, and I will run the test now. When I run this test, now both the test, addition and multiplication, should pass. So if a user story tells you write the addition, write the multiplication, then the addition multiplication two test cases needs to be added here. And it's a developer's thinking, it's a developer's skill here, that he should think of all the different aspects. Obviously, from the business perspective, the story will tell us. Now, the drawback of the test-driven development is the requirement is there in the story, user story, but there are no clear guidelines as to what different scenarios we need to test. Like, do we need to add two different fraction numbers? Do we need to multiply even numbers? Do we need to add only odd numbers? Is there is any specific requirements from the business side? No, this is all not very clear. And the test and the developer is doing all this assuming, okay, addition needs, multiplication needs, looking at the high level requirement. And that's why when the developer do this on its own, it's covering the code, it's writing, it's making the quality good, that's correct, it's following the correct, it's doing all right. But when it goes and talk, but he can't have an interaction with the business guys right now, because what the developer has done is at the very low level on the code. So if the business guys have their mind that that they want to put a restriction into the calculator, that if there are fraction numbers, don't add, or if there are odd numbers, don't multiply, if such requirements are there in their mind, it doesn't get communicated or translated to the developer. So there is a problem here, and that's why the BDD is there. So let's go to the BDD now. This is the TDD example quickly we have seen, and let's go to the BDD, and I'll go to the slide first before we go to the BDD example. I will quickly close the two test cases that we have written here. Perfect. So for the BDD as well, the prerequisites will remain same. And you need to have a Java, you need to have installed the IDEA tool onto your machine, and these requirements are there. So when we will see the what case study we should see for the BDD. So rather than thinking of some other example, because it also need to be simple and quick, let's see the same functionality, which is calculator, through a BDD. So when I want to see that through a BDD, how to implement the BDD for the calculator service, what you will need a calculator, you will need a calculator service, so addition, multiplication, all these things coming. Now this time in the BDD, this requirement is coming from the BAs and the business guys. And remember, while we'll do this, we will make sure that the what we are doing is understand by the business, and how that is we will see now. It's very interesting. See this now, how it is going to happen. So what BDD tells you, Like what TDD tells you, may write the test, make it fail, write the code, make it pass. That's a TDD, simple thing. Low level design, low level implementation, fine. Now BDD is here. We want to implement for the same code, we want to implement the BDD. What BDD tells you? Okay, BDD tells you there is a feature. There is a feature, and the because of the BDD requirement in your definition of done, your user story is slightly different now. And how it is different, I'll explain you that. Because now with the BDD, it will have your user story will have a different template, and that template is as, when, and then. As a user, when I come to the calculator, I should see a calculator and a numbers. When I click two numbers and click add button, I should see the addition of these two numbers. This is one scenario added by the business or a business analyst. Second scenario, as a customer, when I open the calculator, when I given input two numbers, I should see the multiplication. This is the second requirement given by the BAs, and the detailed requirements in this as a user, when, then language they have given. This is the input for the developer now through the BDD. Because what is this? This is features and the scenarios, different scenarios. What is feature? Feature is a calculator feature. What are the scenarios? Addition, multiplication, this and that. It's all our scenarios. Let's come to the code now. Now I'm implementing the BDD right now here, because you will see this template mostly into the code bases, mostly into the user stories, and it's very clear there. Generally, the BAs add these into the user stories, and the template is like this: as a user or as a customer, when I come to the calculator page, I should see a calculator in front of me. I should see the numbers. When I click two numbers and click add addition logo, it should add those two. So similarly like this. So if you think of this, these are all as a feature. So, and this is all has a different scenarios included into that feature. So let's add the feature file here. So the input is the feature file, and this feature file is the either developer or a quality engineers go ahead and create this if they want to integrate this with the Selenium further for an automation testing as full end-to-end. They should do that. But let's see from the BDD's perspective, and which tool we are using here is the Cucumber. Now, like for the TDD, what we have induced into the project, JUnit. We have gone onto the Google, we have taken the version given to the pom.xml. It has induced that JUnit into the project, and we are able to use the JUnit framework, and we did the TDDs. Like for this BDD, what we need to do, we need to go onto the Google, see what is the Cucumber latest version, because Cucumber is the tool that we are going to use to implement the BDD, and quickly add that. So let's go to the Google quickly. If I go to the Google and if I just go in here, simply search, simply search Cucumber dependency. So see here, the Cucumber open source project docs is also tells you what is the version, but then Maven repository, this is the mavenrepository.com, that will also tell you. So if I go to the Cucumber Java, I will have all these latest version, one of the latest version that I should pick. I will go to my code base. I think I'm using already here some version, so I will rather use the same. I will go here and I will add that version now. Perfect. So this is the version. So the Cucumber io.cucumber 6.11.0 I have used. io.cucumber in combination with the JUnit. There are two flavors of the Cucumber that we need to use, because you need to use some features of the JUnit also. So you need to add these two dependencies so that both can be induced into the project. So these two things gets added. Let's save that. Now understand what is the user story tells me the scenarios, different scenarios. Now as a developer, I need to write the feature file now. I need to translate that all into the feature file. So for this calculator service, we need to write the feature file. So let's see in the test folder, let's create this feature file. So it just, you can create this feature file anywhere into your project, but it's organized way because it's a kind of a resource, I would say. It's one of the important resource. So I will create rather a folder or a directory which says resource. And inside the resource, I will create a directory called feature. And inside that, we will just create one file. And what is that file is the feature file. So the calculator feature, calculator.feature. Perfect. So when I added this calculator.feature, my IntelliJ is smart enough. It understands the .feature file because we have included the Cucumber framework, and the plugin is now ready to use for us. So how to write this feature file then? One should be able to write this with the first we need to write the feature name. What is the feature name? Is the calculator service. Scenario. What is the scenario here? Addition of two numbers. So what happens when what? So when so what's the input here? So given is the input. So what is given here? Preconditions. Remember the diagram. Remember the BDD diagram. What's in there? The preconditions. Given is the precondition, set of preconditions. Remember the analogy. I want to come onto the house, press the bell, and the family should open the door. One of the family members should open the door for me. So what is the given there? A user should walk in there, press the bell. Bell is the second precondition. Third is somebody should there to open the door. So these are the preconditions that needs to be there. Then only the event will happen. Otherwise not. So the same event. So to addition of the two numbers, what should be the given things here? What should be the preconditions? We should have two numbers at least to add the number. So given is uh, user is on calculator. Calculator page, you can say, more relevant. What happens is when when user enters two numbers and see two numbers. So we are taking the input here in the feature file. So there is a way to tell this in the feature file, which is number one and number two, because we're taking the two inputs given when and. Remember the diagram, given when and. So the given, this is when and this is then. So the given when enters a user enters the two diagrams, then you will see user should see addition of number one and number two. That's the then. So I can give the example as well here. Examples. So because I'm taking the inputs, it shouldn't be a scenario. It's a scenario outline. There are types of the scenarios. If you are not taking any input, you don't have to use the scenario outline. You should use scenario. Like it's complaining me that it's taking the input. Only scenario outline could have an example. So what I will do, I will just convert that to the convert scenario to the outline. So I have just converted that to the outline. Now it will allow me to add the example here. So I'm just giving an example here so that whoever is reading this feature file should understand. And I can quickly give example here is number. Number. This is number 1. This is number 2. 10. 10, 10. And the second example would be just 10, 10. Yeah, this is the first example. This is just an example we have given here. What should be the types of inputs? It's a 10, 10, and this is the scenario. So that's the feature file. Now see, look carefully at this feature file. We are implementing the BDD. What tool we are using? Cucumber. So in yours, in my story, user story, the definition of done is TDD and definition of done is BDD. I have written TDDs and I have written main code. Now I'm seeing the definition of done is the BDD. I need to make sure that I'm having the BDD as well. What I'm doing here, I'm looking at the user story. A template is given by the business analyst or provided in there as in requirements as when then. I'm reading that carefully and writing and converting that into the feature file, and I have converted here. It's just the one scenario which is addition I converted. Similarly, a second scenario will come here which is multiplication and then division, and different scenarios will come. So this feature file I have number of scenarios one after another. For simplicity, I'm just keeping the one scenario here, which is the addition of two numbers. If I run this, suppose if I right click on this and then if I just run this feature, let's see what happens. It fails because we have not written the backend code for this. But let's see what it complains to us. It understands the scenarios. It understands the scenario feature. Now Cucumber is running this and producing us some results right now. And the results are interesting. Let's see what it will result to us. Perfect. I'm expecting this to fail and it has failed. So see, it's telling me given user is on calculator page, you should have add the backend methods or the backend code. It is so smart. The Cucumber is more smart. It has generated the code for me. And what it is telling me, go and add this. So I'm just simply copying this methods. I'm just right clicking and copying. And I'm just going to the, so I need to write the backend code for this. These are nothing but the steps. So through the feature, I have explained all the scenarios. Now for those scenarios, we need to add the steps. So the definition steps, we can call it as. Let's say I will create a class into here, which is class definition steps, calculation steps. These are the calculation steps. And what will happen here? I will just do, okay. So given this inside on the calculator page, adding the two numbers, user clicks the add button and I should see the result. So these are all, so I have added all the code, backend code, which is required for the test, which is given when, and then like this. It should perform these operations. This is all come from the Cucumber inbuilt. Cucumber is so smart, it has generated the code for you. What developer needs to do, simply copy this and just make the changes, a little bit of changes so that it should pass. Now, after I adding this, after I add this, I'll go to the feature file and I'll run again. Yeah, it putting the scratch on this because we have not added the steps for this. So this is so smart. It is telling us by scrapping the scenario that we haven't added the steps. So I have added the steps now and I have to rerun this. Perfect. We are rerunning the feature file now. And understand now, this feature file is pretty much anybody can understand. Any stakeholder within the project can understand. It's a given, when, and then. It's plain English. These words, given, when, and then, they are called gherkin keywords. So these gherkin keywords are being used here. These are also plain text English. Rest of the language being used is the plain text English. So anybody can understand that. That's the advantage of that. See here, one step is one scenario is passed. Share your cucumber report. Okay, so this is being passed here. Perfect. So this is the one of the step that I have missed. So that's why it is, and I have not added the code here. So I need to add the code. And I'll go to the feature file. It's just simply, okay. So this is this is the step is being passed here. So I'm just looking at why it's failing. It says one step is passed, but it's still complaining about the definition steps that we have written. So I'm just looking at those. What I'm doing is I'm just removing the steps here. I'm just trying running the feature again. It should tell me what steps it needs to include. It's smart. It should tell me that. I don't know why it is not working. So I'm just redoing the thing. Let's see. It should tell me now what steps are required, and I should have able to copy that properly. Maybe I have not copied it properly first time. Perfect. So it should say step undefined. You can implement these steps and two other steps using the snippet below. So it's telling me, okay, this is the hint. You need to add these steps. What are the steps? Given, when, and then. Perfect. And I will just simply copy this. And also we will see, perfect. And also we will go ahead and see what's happening here. Perfect. So these are the steps that we have added. Some of the steps. Okay, it's the duplication. So yes, okay, it's saved. Now just quickly, I should able to run the test now. Okay, now it's running the steps, but it's saying you have not implemented. It says to do implement me. Okay, let's go to the steps and implement those. What are, it says write your code. So I'm just simply writing quickly a code here to achieve this. So it's just that some sample code I'm trying to add in here so that the step should pass. Perfect. And perfect. Saved. Let me run it again. Perfect. You can see all green here, which means one scenario passed. One scenario has 3 steps. What are those 3 steps? When, see here, what are the 3 steps? User is on calculator page, step 1. User enters 2 numbers, step 2. User should see the addition of 2 numbers, 3 steps. One scenario, 3 steps. This one scenario, 3 steps clearly being articulated by the business people within the user story so that the engineers translate that into the feature that we have written here, calculator.feature. And then, because see, everything is green, there are no scratches on this. So the scenario is passed. So the business is onboarded on this test. Developers are onboarded on this test. Quality engineers are also onboarded on this. So agile team along with the business is aligned on this, is on the same page. Both are on the same page. Everybody understand this. It's the Gherkin and English language. So more stakeholders are involved, and the tests are more of a business driven because it's telling you the user behavior, what user do. User come onto the calculator, what user do next. Second step of the user, giving input. Third step of the user, seeing the results. So it is more from the customer's perspective or the user perspective rather than the individuals, rather than the low level perspective. The way we written the test driven development, it was very low level using the programming language. We're trying to test the code that we have written. Here it is more driving from the business side. So that's why the BDD is more inclusive and more suitable to the today's problem statements that we are having and building day-to-day life. So yeah, that is this. It's it's very much covered. There is quickly one thing that I would like to show here. There are reports generated here, and if you want to see the reports, it should be able to generate in the target folder here. So see, this is the HTML reports because in the runner test file, I have given this as an output. It should run here. So I will quickly open this test results uh, onto onto the browser just to show this report. So anybody can see this report. I'm just opening that into the Chrome browser so that you can see a Safari browser. You can see this. Perfect. So this is the, yeah, see, this is past. This execution summary is, there are a couple of scenarios in this given. user is on calculator page, when user enters number 1 and number 2, then and clicks on the add button, then user should see the addition of the two numbers. This is number 1 and number 2. And we have given the example here, 10 10, the output should be 20, 50 50, then the output should be 100. Okay, so this is the feature file. This is the this is explaining, and this is explaining the specification also. Duration is 499 milliseconds. It takes the test case to pass, run. The code to run. Implementation is using the Cucumber JVM version that I have explained you. Runtime is what? It is the Java install that we have used, which is the machine. I'm using the Mac machine to run all this, and the CPO is 64-bit. So this gives you the machine specifications also here. I'm going back to the slide now, and we are very much covered right now. So going so all these concepts are very much covered now. It's the example of the TDDs and BDDs are given. So thank you all. Thanks for patiently watching this. And if you have any questions, doubts, because it's lengthy, I do understand that, but I have we are trying. Sunan is trying very hard, and I'm helping Sunan sometimes to get this delivered the content as close to the real world as possible. So if you think of anything, if you have any suggestions or if you have any doubts, please don't hesitate and put that into the comments, and we will get back to you with the answers. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Uh,
Thanks.
Saurabh,
Back
I
to you,
would
Sunam. Thank
say,
you. Yeah.
yes, Saurabh. So I would say this 1 hour session is equal to 1 month of knowledge or training if someone will go outside and someone will have to take this. So I think Saurabh, it's a wonderful session. The way you have taken all the step-by-step process, that's really good. If someone is going to watch this step-by-step process, I'm sure that definitely it's going to be helpful for them. So yes, Saurabh, thanks again. I'm really appreciate the way you have taken us and shared all the details, minor details in between. The some glitches are coming. Then you again showed us like how to remove that. So friends, there is no editing in this video. It's whatever you have seen is just in a one shot by Saurabh. So yeah, Saurabh, thanks again one more time, Saurabh.
Thank you so much, Sunam. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone, and please do not forget to hit like. Really, I mean, we really need your likes and motivation. So thanks again one more. Yeah, thank you guys. Bye.
Thanks all. Bye. Bye.
Bye.